today is going to be like a little commercial crash course on usually an actual case study of how I did my first larger apartment deal. This is the second commercial deal that I did. Some of you may have watched how I did that first commercial office building with my first $1 million deal back in 2017. And that was really major deal. That was a aha moment for me. I spent the first 17 years of my, first 11 years of my real estate investing experience buying smaller single family, multifamily properties that the novelty of 300 to 500 bucks a month really wore off pretty quickly. It was cool when I first started, but I was like, I need some really life-changing cash flow if I'm going to achieve my financial goals. So this is where, it was my next deal. This deal added about $500 to $600,000 to my net worth and is paying me about $70,000 a year in cash flow. And I have none of my own money into it. Right. So first things first, I'm actually going to share my screen in terms of presentation I have prepared today. And let me start at the beginning of the presentation as I was practicing through this. Okay. All right. So for those of you who don't know me, you know, what gives me even any, first of all, who am I? And then why do I even have credibility to speak on the subject matter of commercial real estate? So just a little bit about myself. My name is Matt Druin. I'm managing partner with Oak Grove Companies, which is a real estate investment and development company. I've been a real estate professional for 17 years. And I graduated kind of swim upstream into investing in commercial real estate about 5-6 years ago or so, and just been scaling from there. The origin of myself is I was born in Rochester, New York, to two absolutely loving parents who have featured in this photo. Would not be the man I am today without them. Worked like animals. All right. This was accretive to my why for real estate investing starting out. Long story short, I lost both my parents in my 20s, and also had a pretty tumultuous childhood, and all the problems in my life leading up to, me after graduating high school and that sort of thing was always tied to money. So I had this sort of obsession of, if we could eliminate the money problem, we'd eliminate a lot of the ills that we have in our life. All of these traumatic experiences were additive to me developing the why around I need to become financially independent by the time I'm 40 years old. Retirement at 40 was my goal in my early 20s when I was in college. And my why was because my parents and all these experiences and that sort of thing, I just did not want to participate in the system of working till I died, which is what my parents did. All right. So that's my why. But my destination was like a lighthouse in the dark, out in the distance. And so I knew where my destination was with crystal clarity, but I didn't have a mentor. I didn't really have anybody helping me. My dad, yes, was a real estate investor. He lost his butt on some real estate deals back in the 80s. But I didn't have somebody that I was able to bend their ear and that sort of thing. So I just went after it like a moth to flame, and I've fallen into every single pitfall you can possibly imagine, sometimes twice. That's how hard-headed I am. And so I've developed this experience in it, and I really have to document kind of like my journey in terms of a timeline I have here. So I'm going to get to that. But first, before I do that, oh, by the way, some housekeeping stuff here. If you do have any questions that pop into your head during this presentation, just pop them into the chat. And I'm going to be monitoring that, and I will get back to it and answer those at a time when it can kind of flow into it, so I don't lose my train of thought. I'm extremely ADD, so it's just the way I need to work. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to get through most of this in terms of how I did this deal specifically, all the tactical type of stuff that you're going to be able to use in your own business as you try to swim upstream into commercial real estate deals, or if you're already there, some of these slick tricks that I've used that you can use in your own business if you're already active in the space. So I'm hopefully going to be able to get some live Q&A. Would love to. So that's why I want to get through the actual program itself. So pop the questions into the chat, please, in real time as they come to your head, and we'll get to all of your questions in due time. All right. So that's a little bit about my personal background. A little bit about my professional background is, why do I even have the credibility to speak on the subject matter? like I said, I'm president, managing director of a real estate development and investment company that I'm partners with my partner, David Martin. And I'm very active in the local real estate community. I am on the board of directors for NYSCAR, New York State Commercial Association of Realtors. I happen to have my broker's license, but I am not actively using it. I'm primarily an investor slash developer. I'm also on the president of the local real estate investors association called FRIA, Freedom First Real Estate Investors Association. Took over that, and actually in January, we've been growing out that organization to evangelically spread the good news around real estate investing and trying to build community and fellowship in that space. Because as a real estate investor can be a very, very lonely, right? So I wanted to grow this organization to spread the word about it, help create community wealth. Unlike a lot of real estate investors associations around the country, ours is a nonprofit. So we're not profit driven in terms of selling products and services to our members. We are mission driven in terms of helping build generational wealth, which is that, you know, baton passing amongst generations in this, like, cosmic race of generational wealth building, right? And real estate is really a great way. It's worked for me. And so and I've gotten injured many times in the process, and I haven't died. All right. So that's a little bit about my professional background. A little bit in terms of timeline here. um my first investment property was a four-family property. Okay. And why did I buy this? Let me go back here before I throw in those other two. Um, my why around buying this property was I was a realtor at the time. My dad was, noticed that I earned maybe about 16,000 bucks in commission checks. I was living rent free. I was only going out to super cheap happy hours when I was 20 years old. So he knew I was saving some money in the process. I owned my car free and clear, didn't have debt on it. And he was like, son, it was not my dream to have a 20-year-old something kid living in my house after they graduated college. So you have until the end of the year to move out. All right. I liked the idea of being able to live rent free. So I bought this little four-family property. And I lived in one of the units. I got a roommate. And the major aha moment for this was when I magically got $1,800 of rent checks in my mailbox on the first of the month. And I was like, oh, this is what passive-ish income feels like. I originally thought my journey to financial freedom was going to become a, Wall Street hotshot, become, some Gordon Gekko, cigar chomping, rapacious capitalist, and that sort of thing. That didn't work out. Couldn't get any jobs in Wall Street in 2006 when I graduated college. So this was sort of like my, major seminal moment where I was like, okay, this is something I can scale. And from that very moment, I really knew that um, I wanted to do bigger deals, but I had this limiting belief that I had to be big in order to go big. Sounds ridiculous, but we all tell this to ourselves, right? Buying bigger commercial deals is for the big boys and big girls that wear big boy pants and big girl pants, not for little old me that, my space is in the, single through four family space. Maybe I'll buy a five family eventually, whatever. All right. And this is something that I harbored for 11 years and, major imposter syndrome that held me back. So I was indoctrinated by the Robert Kiyosaki model of, if you're going to incur a liability, get an asset to pay for that liability. All right. So this was the first time here. So this property, the brown one down the lower left-hand corner here, was the second property I bought. It was a four-family. I bought that with none of my own money. I used hard money, used the Burr method, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat model on that. That was my next aha moment where I was like, okay, I can actually scale this thing without my own capital being a bottleneck in this growth. And so, and I just said, oh, well, I can just do this on, small multifamily and just buy houses until the cows come home. Right. So this property up here in the upper side here, this was a six-family. This is when I bought my first commercial property utilizing the same method as I did this one in the lower end here. And this is where my eyes got opened to when you go from 4 to 5 unit properties. It goes from residential to commercial type of properties. And why that's important is the financing is different and the valuation is different. Banks and appraisers and the rest of the investment community do not value commercial real estate as a real estate deal, really. They actually value it as a business. And the more income a business generates, the more valuable that business is, right? You grow your earnings before income taxes, depreciation, amortization, your company increases in value exponentially. And so this is where I was able to buy a property, and add $100,000 worth of value within a 12-month period just by raising rents and keeping expenses stabilized or decreased. All right. So the reason why I'm going through these things is I'm kind of illustrating these small kind of things that happened to me along the way that kind of added up to me applying those things directly to commercial. Did I need to go through those experiences in order to do that? Maybe I did. Maybe I was just hard-headed. My objective with doing educational stuff like this is to encourage people to consider commercial, and they can do it a lot sooner than I did. It took me 11 years, 25 properties, 76 doors before I was able to earn my financial freedom at 33 years old, right? It does not need to take you that long, because as if you tuned into the other educational trainer that I did on my 16 North Goodman, which was my first $1 million property I bought, that one deal alone replaced my wife's income and added $500,000 to our net worth using none of my own money. Okay. So fast forwarding here a little bit, I took a hiatus from brokerage. Remember, I was a realtor at this point in time, went to work for a couple different larger companies. I got hired as director of operations for a company called DHD Ventures, which is a national real estate development company. And this was where I really got, developed my chops for all different types of asset classes, from multifamily to student housing to medical office buildings to mixed use buildings to industrial complexes to retail strip plazas, to historic adaptive reuse development deals, hotel development deals, every single self-storage as well. So I was able to get exposure to all these different asset classes. And this was and I was hired as a turnaround specialist to turn around assets that were hemorrhaging money, right? So I developed the skills in order to add value to deals, turn around these businesses and make them exponentially worth more in value. All right. So just a little bit of time down. This is just a handful of the properties that I'd acquired over the years here. And this was my first bigger deal, 60 North Goodman Street. This was the major aha moment. I never went back from here in terms of buying smaller deals after that. If I can replace my wife's income with one deal, then I can work less, buy one deal a year that creates significant amount of financial impact in my life, my family's life, and the future generations to come before me. All right. Or after me, I should say. So I just started going bigger and bigger. The most recent deal that we closed on this year was a 50,000 square foot high-rise office building filled with government tenants. That was our largest deal to date. Our next objective is to double that acquisition. We bought that for $2.75 million, raise 100% of the capital for that deal. And we want to do, $5-10 million deal next, and just keep pushing that envelope in terms of keeping ourselves challenged, because I truly subscribe to the Tony Robbins mantra of, if you're not growing, you're dying. Okay. So the suffering part of that whole thing is that growing requires pain. All right. And so I'm always in a state of pain when I'm pushing the envelope, but my objective is to challenge myself, right? Intellectually, and also push myself to the limit and expand the capacities of what I think I can accomplish, and really smash those expectations. And also my goal is to help others do the same. For all of you that are tuning into this right now, I really want you to think differently about how you can scale your business and get to your real estate goals much quicker. All right. So why do we want to go big? All right. It seems kind of like, sometimes it can feel obvious to some people, but one of the things is, number one is for sustainability. All right. Sustainability meaning I was a residential realtor for many years. Every client that I worked with, I sold an investment property to, that didn't grow after that, like clockwork, called me 3 to 5 years later, wanted to dump the property. Okay. Because that $300 to $500 a month in cash flow really isn't going to be like the novelty of that's going to wear off. It's like, okay, maybe that covers my car payment, that sort of thing. It'll pay my, pay for my kids' college education eventually once it's paid off and that sort of thing. It wears off and people get burnt out and they become disinterested and they're like, well, 300 to 500 bucks a month. I mean, I could go do DoorDash on the weekends and do that and not have to tie, tens of thousands of dollars of capital up in the process. So it's sustainability. Like you actually need to grow in real estate to keep interested in it and eventually to become full time. So I just putting it out there is that if you're not growing your real estate business, whether it's smaller deals or larger commercial deals, there's definitely a high burnout factor. You have to get to an economy of scale so you can actually outsource great property management to handle your assets or build a team like I did because we created a management company for $15 million worth of assets across Rochester, New York, for instance. The other reason why you go big is just the order of magnitude. All right, think about it. We control over $2 million a year in gross rents with the assets that we own, right? So you want to raise rents by 3% and bump your take home pay by $60,000 by just pulling a lever or pushing a button, right? There's more involved with that, obviously, because, you have standard turnover and that sort of thing with any type of assets that you have. But it really is when you have a great management team in place, it's as simple as we have a management business meeting at the end of the year. We put together budgets. We're like, hey, we think that we can raise rents by 5%. Boom, they do it. They handle everything in terms of the turnovers and that sort of thing. And it's done, right? Not only does that bump your take home pay by 60 grand, but because those assets you own that are 5 units plus are evaluated like a business, then that is exponential to how much you can grow your wealth as well. So that $60,000 raise can turn into a net worth increase of $750,000. Imagine if you can do that every single year. All right. So, and the great thing about rental increases on this, I have actually a student that's in our program, Brian Buxton. I was on a call with him yesterday. He bought a 56 unit apartment deal. And from when he bought that deal, which was about 3 months ago to now, he's increased rents across the board, revenue by $70,000, and is at $1 million in value to those properties and to his net worth just by doing that. So order of magnitude is another reason why. And also when we are doing typically commercial financing involves different types. There's no such thing as a 30-year fixed rate loan on commercial real estate. You have to typically it's between a 5 and 10 year term. You're typically having to refinance your properties every 5 to 10 years. That sounds scary, right? You'll have a loan that you get and it's 30, there might be 30-year amortization, but has a balloon in 10 years. And that might make you concerned. It's like, well, how am I going to pay this off in 10 years? Well, you refinance it, you get more debt put on the property because you've increased the value and you're able to pull out hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash, tax-free, in order to be used to grow your real estate portfolio. And this is what we do in terms of that strategy. So there's properties that we've owned that we've actually refinanced 2 and 3 times and pulled $400,000 in cash out of those properties and used it to grow our business, right? So if you do that over a large portfolio, you can really create a lot of wealth and cash flow for yourself over the long term. The last one, and I swear I'll get into our case study here, is debt pay down. On a $10 million loan that is amortized over 25 years, your tenants will help you pay down over $840,000 in debt on an appreciating asset in 5 years. Okay. So we're not even taking into consideration appreciation. If there's even meager appreciation of 2% on $10 million portfolio, that's real numbers, right? Versus on a $100,000 property. Okay. We're talking about another smaller scale here. We're going to take that as a fraction, right? So that's going to be $8,400 in debt pay down over 5 years. Your tenants help you pay down on a $100,000 loan. Okay. So these are the reasons why going big is a great idea. So in order to go big, you have to think big. And so I'm going to try to inspire you and motivate you and educate you in and some tactical types of things you can walk away from this and use in your own business and growth, right? Last reason, I swear this is the last one, as to why going big is because it's less competition, right? If you go to a real estate investors meetup and you're with 100 people, and there might be people that are fix and flipping, there may be short-term rental, mid-term rental, wholesalers, a little bit of buy and hold people. You go in the middle of that room and you scream out the question, who invests in commercial, who owns commercial real estate, right? In a room of 100 people, there might be one person that raises their hand, right? So less competition. So you have a lot less competition in terms of all of those, you know, bigger pockets listening, kamikaze, kamikaze sheep mutant people that are, just basically overpaying for properties because they really don't know how to run numbers, or they have some sort of, trend or something like that they're hopping on that are, ruining your business. All you're looking to do is just, land the plane on a deal. And you got other people out there that are competing that are just, they're more than willing just to fly kamikaze style into the deal and overpay for it. So much less competitive, especially in this environment where we have higher interest rates. Yes, it has impacted the commercial real estate market from a transaction volume standpoint, but boy, I can tell you, the deals are getting super creative. In my 17 years of doing this, I've not seen the type of creative finance I've been seeing lately in this environment. And it sucked a lot of the competition out of it too, because people look in today's dollars and cents. They look at 8% interest or 7.5% interest and like, the numbers don't work. I'm not going to look, right? You have to think creatively out there. And I've just seen some deals that came across my desk with crazy lease options that are on commercial deals, seller carrybacks in terms of sellers willing to hold a mortgage or a second mortgage. This recent deal, I said that the seller was actually going to hold a six-figure mortgage in second position, zero payments, zero interest for 5 years to get their number on the deal, right? So this other buyer is actually, going to buy this property with much less money down, or much less money they have to raise. And then when rates come down, let's say within a 5-year period, the whole mantra you've been hearing out there in the news is survive till 25. Remember, interest rates hopefully will normalize over a 5-year period, and then they can capitalize on a 6% interest rate and refinance and take the seller out, right? So much less competition. All right. So I'm going to gloss over some of this, but if you're curious, I get on a lot of strategy calls with potential real estate investors that are looking to get into commercial. By the way, stick through the end with this. I forgot to mention this in the beginning. I have a crazy, insane giveaway at the end of this to reward you for sticking with me through this presentation. Hopefully, I'll be wrapping this up in about 20 minutes. Okay. So just bear with me and stick with me through this. So if you want to figure out which your REI fire or retire early, was it financial independence, retire early number, take whatever cash flow you want and divide it by 0.022. All right. This will give you a general goalpost as to how much real estate you need to own to generate that type of income, right? So this could be to replace the income from your job, divided by 0.022, and you're going to come up with a certain amount of real estate. Put this perspective, if you want $100,000 a year in income to replace your job and be able to focus on it full time, then you need to own about $5 million worth of real estate. Very difficult to control or acquire that much real estate utilizing small residential, 1 through 4 family. All right. So let's just skip along here a little bit. This is one of the strategies here that I talk to my students about, because a lot of the people I work with are full-time they're full-time W-2 professionals, and a lot of them are married. They file married jointly. So the strategy we put them on is one of you replaces your income. Okay. So that one of you with the lower income, let's say if you have a couple, one makes $100,000 a year, another makes $50,000 a year. So the objective is to acquire a commercial property that replaces the income of the lower income spouse. All right. So that then they can walk away from their W-2. And then what they can do is they can then, if assuming they're married jointly, they file their taxes jointly, that person that walks away from their W-2 can then claim real estate professional status and not be limited or capped in terms of the amount of real estate paper losses they can generate. We'll get a little bit into that, but they can take 100% of the losses pass through against the income of the other spouse to be able to shelter more of that income and not be limited to $25,000 a year. And then they can actually use those tax savings to actually grow their business that much faster until they both become financially independent. All right. Okay. Now the case study, right? So after 16 North Goodman, which is my first $1 million deal, this deal came across my desk. This was a mixed use deal. There was a 1-4 family, and then this guy right here, which is a mixed use apartment building, and this was a really interesting deal. All right, so this was about 28 units. It was 24 to begin with. There was a 4 family that came up on the market directly adjacent to this property. I just wanted to control, so I actually ended up adding that in at a later point in time. Bought this additional deal with none of my own money as well, which I get into. But this whole deal was, it was tough. All right. But it was a great learning experience. It was extremely distressed, which I don't recommend people that are the faint of heart to get into an extremely distressed deal like this one. But I had it was a passion of mine because it was 2 blocks away from my house. And this property, before I bought it, was known by code enforcement officers and the police as the Little Shop of Horrors. I'm not sure if it was horrors or horrors, but it did not have a great reputation. And it was 2 blocks away from my house. So I felt like, this sort of, okay, well, I can turn this thing around and improve the neighborhood and that sort of thing. Those types of visions, right? So how did this deal get to me, right? Because the two bottlenecks to an investor growing in real estate, regardless of whether you're doing residential or commercial, is deal flow and capital. All right. So deal flow definitely is a really important to maintain a healthy deal flow. So you're looking at a lot of deals, and then you're making offers, and then you have a healthy deal flow, and you get a property under contract that is actually a really bona fide good deal. Then the capital will virtually raise itself for it. All right. So the origin of this deal was from another investor. My God, why would another investor that's a competitor of yours give you this deal? Okay. How this came about in terms of me being top of mind with this investor was because I was out there networking with a lot of other investors. I was out there, giving my quote unquote sage advice and offering myself and creating value freely without any type of getting anything in return or expectation. I really adopted the giver's gain spirit with my relationship building. I viewed relationships as bank accounts, right? Bank accounts are better if you deposit more than you withdraw. Same thing with the relationships. When you do that, and I've seen this in my own life, you will not you, but the universe or God will reward you exponentially in mysterious ways. All right. I just believe that. There's no rational thinking behind that. I just believe it. So there's an investor that I gave a lot of advice to and helped along the way. And he called me up. He's like, dude, I got this off market deal. It's a pocket listing from a commercial real estate broker. And I can't take it down. It's too big for me. So I figured you do commercial. So you take it, you go after it. Important things here, right? So there's the whole networking piece there, the giver's gain piece, but also there's the identity piece. I was, I only owned 2 commercial properties, 1 small commercial property, and then 16 North Goodman. I started changing my identity to my sphere of influence in the real estate community as the commercial guy. All right. This is what I was looking for, being very clear about what I was looking for. I'm looking for 20+ unit apartment deals, right? That are, have, brick in great locations with, not a lot of deferred maintenance or whatever. Just as clear as you can get in terms of what you're communicating out there with your sphere of influence. The Bigger Pockets podcast, David Green talks about this, the reticular activation system. And this is like, if you go out there, you buy a black Honda Civic, then you start seeing black Honda Civics all over the place. So when you start communicating very clearly to your sphere of influence, to brokers, other investors, as to what you're looking for with the highest degree of specificity, then when they see it, it triggers that thing and connection and anchor to you in their mind. If you're telling your network, yeah, I'm just looking for anything that makes sense. I'm looking for apartment deals, right? Without any specificity, that doesn't anchor their thought or actually like, utilizing brain science, like, stimulate those neurons to be attached to that, that anchoring type of thing. Okay. So this is how the deal came about, right? Um, so I'll get into how I raised the capital for it, how I raised the numbers, but some things in terms of what this deal looked like before I bought it, right? It was fire engine red. This was the prior owner painted over the brick this fire engine red color. By the way, if you own a brick building, don't ever, and it's exposed brick, don't paint brick. It ruins the brick and you'll pay for it later. So I changed the color in order to rebrand this property because it had so much stank on it. Right. Like I was telling you, it had a bad reputation. And so I had to really put a lot of intentionality around rebranding it. Right. Um, See, these are some of the pictures of the interior of the apartments. There was a lot of drug activity at this building. A lot of people that were just mentally ill, mentally ill and drug addicted. And no bad words against people that are suffering from substance use disorder, but this is what it was like. Okay. By the way, this mattress right here was a white mattress, and now it was black. Like this guy never cleaned in 20 years he was living there. Okay. So pretty tired cosmetically. The good thing about it though is that the building had a good roof, and it also had all new windows. It just had good bones to it. There was some plumbing issues and that sort of thing, but it was just a heavy cosmetic play. All right. Um, Funny little story. I had to get this thing under contract and negotiate a deal before I walked the property. All right. The seller, the owner at the time, his name was David, and he did not want to spook his really great residents of this building. I mean, that was sarcastic. Okay. Um, and so I really didn't get I looked at the outside of it. Hey, clean brick, looks like a new roof, new windows, and that sort of thing. How bad could it possibly be? So I got this thing under contract and I walked the property, and I did, first of all, I had to go back home and take a shower after doing it because I felt like I had things crawling all over me. But there was people that, there was a lady that was passed out in the hallway with a needle sticking out of her arm. There was people that were like, there's crack pipes all over the place, needles and that sort of thing. This is how bad this property was. All right. So I did cosmetic renovations on it. So I didn't do a gut renovation like that. You can see this is the same sort of like this paper tile ceiling. Did new flooring, of course. Funny story as well. I mean, this is the renovated kitchen. We actually used all different types of granite remnants in all the kitchens because they were super small. Saved a lot of money on that. And also these were cabinets that were repurposed from another job. I partnered with a general contractor that had a warehouse full of used cabinets, and we ended up using the good ones at this building and saved probably about 80% on it. Now, I wouldn't normally do that with a higher end renovation, but I had to keep in mind that this property was not going to be an extremely high end luxury property. It was going to be, clean workforce housing, people that maybe work at a hospital and they're a CNA. Okay. Or they, work a couple jobs in retail, that type of thing. People that could afford maybe around 800 to 900 bucks a month in rent. So I couldn't go overboard on the unit renovations because I had to have something that my end customer could afford. Right. And that could lease up. Right. During the rebanding process, you can see as I staged um, a model apartment, had an open house, had this big, not ribbon cutting, but really, really big push around, rebranding this thing and making people aware of it, that it was no longer the little shop of horrors. All right. So these are numbers on the deal. Remember, it was the big building and a 4-family behind it, right? Directly behind it. All right. So I bought that 2-property package for $775,000. All right. When I was underwriting this property, and this is the address on it right here, I was actually surprised because the bigger property, when I underwrote it and I talked to a commercial appraiser, the big property alone would be worth probably 775, 790. Okay. So I was like, how could I creatively finance this thing? All right. It's a two property package. So what I ended up doing is I ended up renegotiating the contract midstream. There was no material effect to the seller whatsoever, but I ended up negotiating it kind of mid contract. I was like, hey, Mr. Seller, are you okay if we buy the bigger building, amend the contract with our attorney? There's another great thing here. Work with a great attorney. There's two attorneys in this types of attorneys in this world. There's deal makers, and then there's deal breakers. You want to be working with deal makers, because deal breakers are these like litigator types that want to bust everybody's balls. Every step of the way through a transaction, you're going to have way higher fallout with transactions and not have a good, so you want to have somebody who is a creative attorney who has a good reputation, has a reputation of working well with other attorneys. They're very important in commercial real estate. Do not work with a residential attorney that just happens to do a couple of commercial real estate deals a year, right? Disaster. So after that side note there, we went to the seller. We said, okay, how would we buy the big building for 775, and then the smaller four family for $1, and then make the sale and transfer title of the smaller property contingent on the sale and transfer title of the bigger property. Okay, and the seller was like, doesn't matter to me. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so my attorney did the work, changed the contract. Why did I do that? The reason why I did that was because I got a hard money lender that gave me $180,000 to put a first position mortgage on the small four family property. All right. I used and remember, I bought the four family for $1. Right. I used the proceeds from that $180,000 for the down payment with ESL Federal Credit Union. As you can see, this is a local credit union. All right. So I walked away from closing with a check for about $18,000. So bought a deal with none of my own money, but actually got money back at closing. The reason why I did that was because I wanted to have some operating cash to get this property sort of like my arms around it and not be in a cash burn situation. So I wanted to have enough cash in the balance sheet for this building in order to get through for a few months. And so that's what I did. It was crazy. We had a closing scheduled at the bank attorney's office. We asked if we could, use another conference room there for another transaction. This is where we closed the four family. The hard money lender's attorney was there with the checks. We signed the mortgage documents for that hard money loan and got the check and walked it down the hallway to the closing for 441-447 Monroe Avenue. And that's how we did the deal. All right. So that, wow, you saw the pictures. This thing had a lot of hair on it. It was messed up. So it was going to need a lot of renovations. I calculated about $350,000 in CapEx to turn what I was working with up to what you saw the pictures of. And so I needed to raise capital for those renovations. I was able to raise about $250,000 in capital from the same group of people that I asked for 16 North Goodman, right? Some of those investors that, because on North Goodman, the deal that was prior in the case study to this, check it out if you haven't seen it, were friends and family, right? It was an aunt, it was an uncle, it was my father-in-law and mother-in-law, all right, that ended up putting the money, putting money in there, right? And this can be like, Matt, oh, God, you're so privileged. Like I don't have friends and family that have money. That's okay, right? There's ways around that. There's ways to do it. It's just going to be a lot harder. And when I say with people that have people in their sphere of influence, friends and family that do have money, use your privilege, damn it. All right. There's a lot of people, your ancestors made a tremendous amount of sacrifice to put you where you are right now and gave you the responsibility of putting the ladder down generational wealth wise for your kids and grandkids and cousins and whatever. Right. So use it. Right. And so, that was a easy ask. I didn't even pay them back on 16 North Goodman yet. They were getting monthly checks from that property. So it was definitely like, oh my God, like if I asked them, like, I haven't even paid them back. Like I am paying them the monthly interest payment, but I haven't paid them back their principal yet. they were used to getting that monthly income off of there, liked it. It came in like clockwork via ACH to them, and like, hell yeah, we want to do more of it. So that's what I did. All right. Didn't get me to the whole 350 though. So I came up with the idea. This thing needed a lot of value add. And so I found a general contractor that was open to sweating their overhead and profit into this deal and then just doing it at cost. All right. So I was able to save a lot of money on the on that and be able to stretch that. So I asked them to actually, contribute $100,000 in hard costs, which is at their cost, to bring this thing into completion. All right. So that's what we did. I gave in return to that, I gave him 19% equity in the LLC that owned the building. And that's the way the partnership worked, right? Didn't work out so great. It wasn't a good fit between the two of us, but it was something that was definitely ended up being successful in the end, right? So the story here is that I was able to increase the rent roll from about $152,000 to $227,000 annually, right? Increase the NOI, net operating income, which is an important term with commercial real estate. Push the value of the building of that big building alone to 1.4 million. And this was I was able to get that value, and I was able to refinance the property, pull cash out, and then pay my investors back, right? So I'm going to give you a breakdown of how that got dispersed. So first of all, we had the loan proceeds of 1.1 million. This is broken down. $350,000 of paid back to the friends and family. I used their money for about a year and a half to 2 years to perform this, and then $602,000 in the prior mortgage. Like I said, this thing did not work out with the general contractor that I had. So we agreed, okay, let's buy you out. So I was able to, we negotiated a buyout price on it. So we negotiated $173,000. The good thing is I had enough equity in this to do that. Hindsight being 2020, I probably shouldn't have partnered with this person, but it was a good idea in theory. So I thought there would be an alignment of interests, but it just didn't work out. I'm not going to get into details because we got about 15 minutes left, and I want to get to some live Q&A with y'all while you're here. So that's how I got into this deal. That cash flows 70 grand a year, tax free. Okay. The lessons learned here, this is my conclusion, is start raising capital now. The best time to raise capital is when you don't need it. The best time to ask for money is when you don't need it. All right. So if you're looking to scale into larger deals or even, continue to do smaller deals, right? You just want to grow your portfolio. Start raising capital in terms of having conversations. If you have worked at Procter and Gamble and quality control for 20 years and nobody knows about your little side hustle in real estate, start talking about it. When people ask you what you do, tell them you're a real estate investor. All right. Everybody wants to own real estate. 99% of people want to own real estate. The reason why they don't and why you're the 1% is because people don't want to deal with the 4 T's, the tenants, trash, toilets, and most importantly, time. They don't have the time to hunt deals, educate themselves, deal with the management issues, raise capital, refinance, that sort of thing. So you are you are the gatekeeper, right, to people's access to the real estate business. All right. So talk about it to everybody. Start with your sphere of influence. That is the lowest hanging fruit. Those are the people that know, like, and trust you, that they have that KLT factor with you. All right. So go after it. I just want to break the brutal news to you that there's not some secret crowdfunding app that's out there where if I have a big deal and I need the capital for it, I can just put it up there and I can use some magic sequencing of words and Jedi mind tricks to convince somebody to invest in the deal. That is a recipe for disaster. All right. If you listen to my podcast, the Go Big Live Real Estate Investors podcast, like they all started, I've interviewed about 40 titans, real estate titans so far, and they started with friends and family. So, so start educating people start educating your sphere, right? 2, building relationships with bankers, right? Start that now. Research community banks that are in your area, community banks and credit unions, and ask if they have commercial real estate lending departments. Okay. If they do, then ask to speak with somebody out there, to meet with somebody face to face that is a loan officer for that. That relationship building early on when you don't even have a deal goes a long way. Um, when you call a loan officer with this bank that you already have a relationship with, went out to coffee with, went out to lunch with, you're more likely to get a term sheet turned around, like a proposal for the loan, much quicker than if you called them out of a cold dead blue. All right. Um, Also building relationships with commercial real estate brokers. There's a lot of this obsession with the residential space that, off market deals, you can, buy apartment communities off market and that sort of thing. Sadly said, I set fire to tens of thousands of dollars in direct marketing that didn't turn into one single deal when I started wanted prospecting over commercial real estate deals. Worked great for me in the residential space. I was a direct mail fiend. Like if I was itching for a deal when I was a deal junkie, I would send out 2,000 pieces of direct mail and then I would get, 2 to 3 deals out of it. Okay. Did not work in commercial. Commercial real estate brokers are basically control the most amount of deal flow. And number one, they work with motivated sellers. All right. Um, Motivated sellers aren't found the off market, it's not some little old lady that can't keep up with her house anymore. That is, this is your typical motivated seller when the residential space. These are more sophisticated owners of properties. They played some cards right to get to where they are and owning larger assets. So they typically will sign a listing agreement with a commercial real estate broker. 99% of the transactions that happen in the commercial real estate space, at least in our market, happen off market. So you have to develop those relationships with commercial real estate brokers so that you can get on their A, B, and C list and be very clear with what you want. All right. Not just, a deal that makes sense. Like be very clear in terms of asset class, location, product type, the whole 9 yards. Little slick trick here on acquisition financing: work with a credit union so you can avoid prepayment penalties. I am an expert on commercial burring, the buy, rent, rehab, refinance, repeat. So I don't have the same debt on my property for very long. So I don't want, I want to have the optionality of going to whatever bank in town to get the cash out refinancing on the deal that offers the best terms. So working with a credit union is great because they're barred from charging prepayment penalties. All right. And when you're talking about $1 million deal and they have a 5% prepayment penalty, that's a big check. All right. So you can avoid that by working with working credit unions instead. All right. When you're going through the refinance process after you've executed your value add on this deal, like Monroe Avenue, for instance, is you actually get to pick the appraiser. All right. Weird, right? In residential, like there's a random appraisal generation system and you just get assigned an appraiser. And when I was a residential real estate agent, I'd see the appraiser's name on there. I'd be like, oh God, they're the grim reaper of real estate deals and that sort of thing. You get to pick them, but you don't know who it is. These come in blind appraisal bids. So you're going to see bid 1 through 6, right? In an order of cost. There's going to be a few of them that might be a couple grand, and then there's going to be a couple of them that are like $15,000, $18,000. Those $15,000, $18,000 bids came in from a national appraisal company like CB Richard Ellis or Cushman Wakefield. The reason why counterintuitively you'd want to go with a higher appraisal bid is if your numbers are tight on your refinance in terms of like being able to deliver your investors capital back to them, then if you select a national appraiser, they use regional cap rates to capitalization rates to apply to real estate transactions. Not like they don't know the market as well, and the values are typically much, much higher than your local appraisal companies. So just belt and suspenders. Sometimes I've done it just to make sure I have enough cash out, then to be able to pay my investors back. And then, change your sphere of influence, right? Hang out with people that are doing larger deals, get involved with a mastermind, find those people that are your local real estate meetups or whatever, or start a meetup of your own if you don't have one in your area, and start being very clearly communicating what you're looking to do. All right. So I'm going to be wrapping up soon. I do have extended, Q&A after this that we can do live Q&A. I still see that some of you are still in here. But if you want to go big and start indoctrinating yourself in terms of like, yeah, I just want to do some more education and that sort of thing. I'm really, really like new at this idea. You've inspired me, Matt, but I really don't know what direction I want to take this. I have a podcast called the Go Big Live Real Estate Investors Podcast. I also do have a private Facebook group where I post the podcast instantaneously after we record it, right? Weeks ahead of when it goes out to Apple and Spotify. So you can get instant access to that, and also you have the opportunity to engage in live Q&A with our guests. And I've had Gino Barbaro, Matt Faircloth, Reed Goosens, Chris 70, Brian Burke, Stephen Libman, Ashley Kerr, Matt Faircloth. I don't know if I said Matt Faircloth, the guy who wrote the book on raising private capital, on my show, and many more. And you have direct access to them to ask in terms of Q&A after we do our first interview. So it's an incredible amount of value, and it's completely free. All right. So if you want to talk big and you're wondering if you're serious about doing this and you want to do, I want to do larger commercial real estate deals, but I want help doing it, I can show you how to do it exactly in terms of the method that I've used, the tactics I've used, and and what I do ongoing to, build my portfolio and help others build their portfolio at light speed. Happy to get on a 1 hour free 1 hour consult with you. This QR code here, take a picture of it. This has direct access to my calendar, so you can pick a date that works for you. I know that there's already one person that's in here that's already booked their call. So qualifications, right? I only work with experienced real estate investors. So sorry, I don't work with newbies. I used to coach newbie real estate investors that have never done a real estate deal before. I realized I spent 99% of my time reselling them on the idea of why real estate was a good idea. So I only work with experienced real estate investors. All right. Qualification number 2, you can't be broke. All right. I've talked a lot about doing deals with none of your own money. The reason I say that is it not being a bottleneck to your growth. All right. So if you are, broke and don't have, 2 nickels to rub together, commercial real estate is not going to save you. All right. So there's, so I do have other resources for you in terms of that. Definitely keep educating yourself, but find a way to start building that cash base and strengthening your balance sheet before you start launching into commercial real estate deals. If you book a call, this is my guarantee. All right. This is my giveaway. If you don't feel that what I have is an absolute perfect fit for you and what your goals are, I will give away one of my courses that I sell for $8,000. Okay, for free. This is how confident I believe in. And if you feel like I wasted your time and it's not your cup of tea, then it's fine. I'll just give you access to that course. We'll walk away, and I hope you get value out of it. So that is my Godfather offer today. So for the time being, right now, let's engage into some live Q&A. I have all of you muted and also the video off. So if you want to unmute yourself and jump in here, then I'd be happy to do so. I got Jordan Smith on here. What's up, Jordan? It's actually my neighbor.
Hey,
All
Matt.
right, so
You hear me?
I can hear you. What's up?
I'll just say hey. Appreciate this.
Yeah, hope you got some value out of it.
Absolutely.
Same as well. Thanks, Matt. Really appreciate. I'm gonna have to look at it again and formulate some questions later. But really appreciate it, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is on YouTube live right now. So I'm going to circulate the link to it right after. And if you have follow-up questions, just let me know. Or if you want to take the conversation a step further and talk about how I can help you individually, I'm happy to do that too. Anybody else? We got Adam in here, Adam Tetzlaff.
Searching for my unmute button. Hi, Matt. I'm here. I'm Adam.
Hey, what's up, Adam? How you doing, man?
Good, good. This is great stuff. I really appreciate the invite and you letting me join. I, again, don't have any questions at the moment, but I do look forward to, I'll probably actually rewatch this again at some point. But it's been really, really informational, so I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, Absolutely. I'm happy you got some enjoyment out of it, and hope you got some good nuggets.